Hello and welcome to today's session of the Living Bridge Conversations and the Life series brought to you by iGlobal, your multimedia hub for and about global Indians. I'm Tony Patty and it's great to be with you today, and I'm your host for today, and I'm joined by the wonderful and very talented Bhaven Pathek MBE. Now let me tell you about him and his background, which I'm sure you'll be intrigued to know. Now Bhaven is a British-born director and senior corporate financier in the City of London. He has led several mergers and acquisitions as an investment banker, and also as an investor in and advisor to startup ventures across the world. He's a founder and trustee of Yog Foundation, a registered UK charity which seeks to revive Hindu values and bring the community together for doing good in the spirit of selfless service. Now, Bhaven is passionate about spirituality, philosophy, and enjoys being a family man with 3 children. He was recently recognized with an MBE honors by Her Majesty the Queen for services to British Hinduism and business. But on top of all that, he's just a great guy. And we managed to take some time out, or he's managed to take some time out of his busy schedule of all the great things that he does, not only for in terms of business and his full-time job, but also for charity as well. And he's joining us here today. Bhaven, a very warm welcome to you, and it's lovely to see you again. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for the actually, Tony, thank you so much for a very, very kind introduction and a very generous introduction. I'm not sure I deserve that, but
you absolutely deserve it, and I speak from the heart.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And it's a real pleasure to be here with iGlobal again.
Lovely. It's lovely to have you along as well. And now, just before we delve deeper into our conversation with Bhaven today, just to let you know, a quick word for our viewers and listeners. This show is yours too. So do drop us or drop in your comments and questions, and we'll pick them up during the conversation and the course of our conversation as we go along. So Bhaven, after that stellar background intro that I've just shared with the world right now, thanks for sparing us some of your valuable time. And we're going to be talking about today about heritage and culture, essentially. And I know this is a subject which is very close to your heart. And I don't think, personally, that it's talked about enough or recognized or highlighted enough in our day-to-day lives, because you, for one, who was born and raised in London, and you have a successful career in the city. So it's pretty important that we hold on to our heritage and culture values. What does that mean for you?
I mean, for me, there's 2 things. There's the personal aspect to it, the personal element to it, and then there's a sort of community element to it as well, the cultural side of it. So for me personally, yeah, I was raised single-handedly in a family of 2 brothers and 2 sisters, single-handedly by my mother. And she was able to do that because of her faith. She almost kind of, her faith went to another level when she realized she has to raise us single-handedly in this foreign country without any family, without any unit or infrastructure around her, as my father passed away at a very young age.
Yeah.
And it was the faith that gave her the strength, because she was also very ill. We were in care. And so when she turned to her faith, her devotion, and that gave her the strength, it was just very natural for her to instill it within us as well, as she raised us. In her own way, personally, I wouldn't do it the same way, but in her own way, which in some ways worked, to ensure that we also carried those values, that faith, religious tradition with us as well. And so for me, in a personal capacity, it was very important. But also then look around, and I think actually I went through a period myself, being a young adult, where I didn't like that. I didn't want that. It's something that I was embarrassed about, actually, and would make an apology for. And so it was important that as I matured, I realized, no, this is who I am. It's my identity. This is what makes me. And then as I went through that myself, I realized, actually, look around me, very few people are confident or comfortable with their heritage, with their faith, and it's a shame in a way, because it's been passed down for generations, for centuries almost. And it plays to your identity. It's your DNA. It's who you are. Well, surely you want to make an attempt to hold on to that, preserve it, celebrate it.
Exactly. Bhaven, I can totally relate to that, being in a similar situation myself in my past life. And you used a key word there a couple of times, which is identity.
Mm.
And I love that. Now, defining what is your heritage means understanding your inherited sense of family identity. So, exploring these questions and activities to strengthen and better express our own sense of heritage is quite important, don't you think?
Oh, yes, I think it is. And because otherwise, I mean, here's the thing, we say we're British Indians, but what does that mean? What does it mean
Yeah,
to be a British Indian?
yeah,
Or we'd say, yes, so we're holding on to our heritage as an Indian there. Or we say a British Hindu in my case. Well, what does that mean to be a British Hindu? Is it, and I'm glad it's not defined, but it's something we as individual British Indians, British Hindus, whatever that might be, British Asians in some cases, um, we have an understanding of that ourselves. Because otherwise, we go through life still trying to figure that out. What is my identity? How do I define myself? For me, it became as I'm British. I think in English. I raised in the British culture and the British education system. I identify as British, but there's also a part of me that is a big part of me actually that is Indian and that is Hindu in
yeah.
its heritage. And therefore, when you combine those two things, I celebrate and not just accept, but I celebrate the fact that I'm a
Mm.
British Hindu, and a British Indian.
And very well
I think
said.
that's what. Yeah,
Yeah, very well said, Bhavin. You see, the word heritage brings to mind different ideas for different people, and so it should. But heritage is a person's unique inherited sense of family identity, as you quite rightly have explained to us. So the values, traditions, culture, and artifacts handed down by previous generations are so important to us. So as we absorb a sense of our, how can I put it, our heritage throughout our lives, as we observe and experience the things that make our family unique, although not every inherited trait, tendency, or tradition is positive, but we generally consider heritage to being positive and meaningful elements of our family's identity, which is what you're telling us today, because this is something that you've learned and picked up not only through your mother's influence, but through cultural identity as well.
exactly. And that's exactly that. I mean, heritage is it's an inheritance, isn't it? So
Yeah.
when you know an item of jewelry could be inherited. And then very often people say, this necklace here is my great grandmother's and it's been passed down for generations, or this certain thing here or object here has been passed down for generations. So that's an heritage. And
Yes.
similarly, the culture, the values is a heritage. There's a
Absolutely.
responsibility. It's
Yeah.
incumbent upon us in some ways of holding on to it. Because if one generation doesn't or can't, then there's no hope for the next generation because it's
Indeed.
lost. It takes one generation for all of that to just be lost, and we see that in other cultures as well. That
Mm,
unfortunately, due to slavery or whatever other reason,
mhm.
they've lost touch with those roots and that heritage. And that's why I
And
think it's a
it's so
very,
important,
very fragile thing.
so important to remember those, isn't it, Bhavin, as you say?
hmm it is, and I mean a good example, Tony, is language.
Yes.
So, my mother was fanatical about making sure we learnt Gujarati,
Gujarati. Yep.
and
Mm.
then once did well in reading and writing Gujarati, it was like, now it needs to be Hindi. It's like, I hated it, absolutely hated learning it, sitting with a tutor and learning these
Yeah.
things whenever we went in India for 3 months every year. Um, but you know what? It's empowered me massively as an asset, giving me access to an entire culture through language. So much so that I'm just as obsessive with my children in making sure that they learn Gujarati at least.
Well, isn't that
Um,
important? Cultural identity, exactly what we're talking about today, heritage, so
mm,
important. How important is that? But Bob, I'm going to throw a few things at you right now, and I'm just going to give you some food for thought. Respond to them if you wish. And for the benefit of our viewers today, if you have just joined us, these are the Living Bridge Conversations, compliments of iGlobal. And if you have just joined us, a very warm welcome to you. I'm talking with Bhaven Pathak today, and we're talking about heritage and culture. So here we go. I'm going to throw a few things at you, Bhavin. Respond to them if you wish, but you don't have to. But I'm just going to plant the seed anyway for the continuation of our conversation. And you know what I'm like. I'm always have a few surprises up my sleeve, but not to throw you. So here we go. When we talk about identity and heritage, how would I define my ethnic, cultural, or national identity? Number two, what traditions or rituals do I observe either in everyday life or on special occasions? And three, what are my most prized values, hobbies, or interests when it comes to these things? And four, what positive traits, tendencies, or attitudes would I use to describe my family in general? And you've touched on that already with us. But what values, traits, and interests or hobbies do I have that I see in my own children or grandchildren? Again, going back to the cultural identity and heritage part of our conversation. How's that for starters?
Yeah, I think let's go for it. We'll start with number one.
Okay.
So if you give me a reminder what number one is.
How would I define my ethnic, cultural, or national identity?
British for sure. And in fact, if anyone is in any doubt, when England plays India in the cricket, I'm
Oh,
sorry
yes.
to say I support England. Okay.
Okay.
If that's a way of defining it. So certainly British, but definitely equally Indian and Hindu as well, by language, by culture, by faith as well. That I'm in no doubt about, and I think that really empowers me. That gives that sense of identity, keeps me grounded as well.
All right. Well, it was a leading question. And with that, I'm going to throw this at you as well, then, Bhaven. Again, not to throw you, but how does this identity shape your sense of who you are?
Massively, because I think sense of identity, it almost entirely defines me, because it's what I've grew up with. It's what I do in outside of my work, and in fact, I've learned to carry that with me into work as well. Before I used to be sort of shy and embarrassed about it, so it absolutely defines me. So it's almost like Bhavan the Hindu, I'm known as, and I'm happy with that. Yeah.
Bravo. What traditions or rituals, number two, do you observe either in everyday life or special occasions? Part of which you've already answered for us just now.
So I was raised doing puja every morning. So I do a worship in the morning. I don't know if you can see. So I'll do a tikka, a tilak in the morning as well. But it's changed. What I did when I was 15, 25, 30 is very different to what I'm doing when I'm, what am I now, 41. And so now it's much more about meditation, much more about japa, much more about introspection. So that's a daily ritual for me. Sometimes I can take 10 minutes doing it. Sometimes I'll do 2 minutes. And special occasions, whenever I'm overwhelmed by something, just to be grateful to the Almighty.
Right.
I think that's a
So
really
there's observance there. Great. That's good.
Yeah.
So what about your prized values, hobbies, or interests? Did your parents, siblings, or even grandparents or relatives actually share these?
The main hobby I do have is music, and within that, so music is any music, any music that's poetic, that's rhythmic, that's melodious. But then I tend to have a particular affinity towards ghazals and semi-classical. And as a result, I rediscovered the bhajans through that as well. So the meaning of bhajan, the feeling of bhajan. So that's something Mum was again very obsessive about.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. So in terms of positive traits and tendencies or aptitudes, would you use these to describe your family in general? And how did these traits manifest in your life?
So I suppose as traits, I think I keep coming back to my mother for some reason, but it's so
Nothing
true
wrong with that. Nothing wrong with
that
that.
that trait was kind of make stuff happen. I would keep the language clean. Like don't worry if Bhagwan, the God above you, it will wants it to happen, it will happen. You just do your work and do your best. And otherwise, I had no right, to be honest with you, Tony. School I went to, area I grew up in, to end up working as an investment banker in the city, no right whatsoever. But so that kind of trait, not pursuing things, not being held back by your incapacities or whatever those might be, your doing your best and leaving the rest into the Almighty's hands.
Yeah, very well explained. Finally, what values, traits, and interests or hobbies do you have that you see in your own children and eventually you'll see in your grandchildren that you would wish to see manifested in younger generations in your family.
Yeah, I mean, grandchildren,
Right.
maybe not yet.
A
My
big
own
one.
children.
It's a big
So
one.
I have I have a 13-year-old daughter, a 9-year-old son, and a 6-year-old son.
Yeah.
And what do I see in them? Very, very different. One's very introspective, very reflective, likes to think about things and read around things. Has a curiosity. They're all very curious, actually. I was very curious
Mm.
because that's how I discovered more about my faith through curiosity. That's one thing. And second thing is deliberately try to keep them involved in and familiar with bhajan. That's
Yeah.
one way. Language is proving difficult to do so. Bhajan, by giving them access to bhajan, familiar with bhajan, so they'll know Hanuman Chalis off by heart, for example. So many bhajans off by heart. They
Excellent.
sing bhajans every day as part of the daily bhajan that we do for Yog Foundation. So bhajan is definitely something that's continuing in the family in all three of them.
So this has actually led me almost quite deliberately into my next question for you. And do you think then, Bhaven, that the British Indian youth today struggle with the cultural identity, faith, and heritage that you speak about so well today with us, and the struggle that the younger generation is facing this day and age? Why do you think that struggle is there in the first place?
In short, do they struggle? I think they do. I did, and I grew up in a household which felt very strongly about values and faith and tradition. So I believe they do struggle. I believe they struggle because it's an enigma. It's unknown what me being British Hindu means or British Indian means.
Mm.
How do I? Is it by supporting India in the cricket, by watching Bollywood, which increasingly is more American than even Indian now? Um, is that what makes me British Indian? I don't know.
Mm.
So I do think they struggle. And why is it? I think because it's never been a focus or point of importance. I
Yeah.
mean, our parents came to this country either via Africa or directly from India, really to work hard, to earn, to make a life for themselves here. And they passed that sort of enterprising hard work ethic onto the children, and rightly
Yeah.
so. So it became about education. It came about, do work really hard, do as well as you can do, be it in business, in education, whatever else you do. Um, there was rarely this sort of, oh, and by the way, try and go Monday once a week, or try and, let's have a conversation in Punjabi, Gujarati, Hindi, whatever it might be.
Mm.
That kind of lost its importance over the time. So I think that has a part to play with it. And I think,
Yeah.
frankly, I think there's also a lack of role models in this, that someone
Well
can hang their hat and say, yeah, that's what it means to be a British Indian.
Yeah,
And, I can relate to that.
well said. The thing is, with culture and heritage, we've talked a lot about culture. We've talked about the past, but culture and heritage are concepts that have become very common and are used by people to describe the legacy of the past generations, as we speak about today. And in fact, the use of the phrase cultural heritage and the endeavor by various organizations to declare World Heritage Sites in different parts of the world has confused many as they look for differences between culture and heritage. No wonder the youth of today are confused. So, is this all about going to the temples, going to the mandirs, to the gurdwaras, and wherever people may want to go in order to withhold or uphold their culture and heritage as well? Is it necessary to do that, to actually go to the temple on a regular basis once a week?
No, I mean, I just threw that out as an example. I don't think it is. Sorry, Mum, but
No, no,
I,
I'm in total agreement with you
I,
because you're already installing that culture and heritage in your own home, or you're doing it already,
yeah,
aren't you?
I mean,
Yeah,
I can't say to other children, make sure you go Monday to once a week. And when they go to the Monday, it's stuck in the dinosaur age. It's not
right.
accepting for the youth. So it works both ways. The Mondays is taking me off on another tangent here, but the Mondays or the places of worship or our cultural centers need to be more up to date, modern, and embracing of the younger generations, and positioning themselves where, for example, using more English, making it, getting rid of the old stuffy ways that just don't make no sense anymore, frankly.
Mm,
Um, So I don't think saying going Monday once a week is a way, or even every day is necessarily the remedy to that. I think, look, the Hindu heritage in particular, the heritage that comes from the Indic value system, the region of entire India, dates back thousands of years. I mean, this is older than the Greek culture and ancient Greece or ancient Rome. This dates back further than that, and it's been continuing over generations, for centuries, for even millennia. So there's a kind of responsibility that goes with that as well. So how is it held on? So when you talk about culture and heritage, you have to also talk about values, because it all comes from a value system. And so what are those values? It's the values of doing your dharma, duty, responsibility, doing your karma, the values of seva, the value of striving to be a good human being, the value of thinking of the other, not just yourself, because we're all one family in one side. So, and then when we go back to the values, the culture and the heritage comes kind of by itself, I would argue.
Very well said. If you have just joined us, these are the Living Bridge Conversations. We are talking with Bhaven Pathek MBE today. And Bhaven is a British-born director and senior corporate financier in the City of London, and has led several mergers and acquisitions as an investment banker, and is also an investor and advisor to startup ventures across the world, and also the founder and trustee of Yog Foundation, which is what we're going to be talking about in just a little while from now. Do stay with us right here on the Living Bridge Conversations, and we'll be back after this short break. iGlobal Radio is the brand new hub of podcasts for and about global Indians. News, views, interviews, wellness, money matters, and much, much more. Tune in to iGlobal Radio at iglobalnews.com. Welcome to you. Thank you for joining us. Bhaven Pathek and I, Tony Patty, are with you here this afternoon. And a little bit about these Living Bridge Conversations that we are indulging in. Compliments of iGlobal. These have been curated by iGlobal to bring you so many such artistic journeys. And we also offer and cover food recipes, musical escapades, energetic fitness routines, festive fashion, dharmic discussions, and much, much more. So stay tuned at the iGlobal social media channels for updates on our regular streams with an array of guests that embody the British Indian diaspora living bridge. And of course, you, our viewers, are at the heart of these conversations. We thank you for that. And join in with your questions and comments in the comments box, and we'll pick them up as we go along. Talking of which, Bhaven, I've got Tasem Singh Bimra who joins us, and he says, a thank you for sharing this valuable information with us. So, Tarsam, thank you very much indeed for your compliments there, and I'm sure Bhaven will be delighted to see that and hear that as well. So that's really.
I've got a curveball for you, Tony.
Go on. Yeah, go on.
Seeing if you've been putting me on the spot, but it does intrigue me. It's no secret that you wear a turban, being being a Sikh, presumably.
Yes.
How's that for you, growing up in this country wearing a turban? Because I know that those who've said, look, it's not really that important. It's more the Sikh faith itself. Whereas those who are not necessarily practicing as the Sikhi still do wear a turban. So what does that mean for you? And
first of all, it's an identity, and I gracefully accept and humbly accept the curveball that you've thrown at me. But so relevant to this conversation. Thank you for that, Bhaven.
That's right. Yeah.
The situation is this: that I, like yourself, grew up as a child in this country, and being the only Asian kid in the school and the only Indian person in the school with a turban wasn't easy. But the identity part, the cultural and the heritage part that you talk about and speak about with passion today was exactly what kept me going through my parents. It was that did it. And then later on in life, through my university days, etc., of course, I had an opportunity to get my hair cut and lose the turban. Of course, I had that. I had every opportunity available to me. But then I got into the business of broadcasting, journalism. I studied journalism, and one thing led to another. And what was once a hindrance became an identity.
Mm.
And that identity, I wouldn't lose for anything in the world today, because it is so very valuable. You see, as Tony Patty, just like Bhaven Pathek MBE, if we were to lose our identity, we lose our culture and we lose our heritage.
Yes.
Simple. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's my answer to that. And for me to lose my identity, yeah, people may recognize the voice, they'll see me, they may recognize me, but I won't be the same Tony Patty
No.
as people have known me for over the years.
Hmm.
So identity is so important, and carries a lot of depth about it. And I think,
Hmm.
as you quite rightly said, that in this day and age of cultures and values, we're in a situation, and forgive me for going on. This is supposed to be all about you, and now it's turned
I
towards
was just intrigued. That's why.
yeah,
I mean, but it makes you who you are, right? And that's what it is, and you
precisely.
don't need to make an apology for that.
Now, here's the
Um,
thing. Here's the thing, Bob. And the thing is, globalization has evolved over time and
mm,
continues to change. And as it's been demonstrated to us over the years, the old globalization, driven by the Industrial Revolution, involved two phases from the early 19th century to the start of either World War One, World War Two, and the fall of the Soviet Union, and so on. I could give you a history lesson on this, but we're not here for that today.
mm,
You see, what I'm talking about here are the transitional changes that society and cultures have had to endure over the years. And bravo to yourself, to your mother, and to our parents, and to their forefathers for holding on to that culture and identity and heritage that we enjoy today.
yeah, and I'd echo that, because otherwise, what have you gained? There's so much to lose,
Mm,
in that identity, by
yeah,
foregoing that identity, that culture, etc.
yeah,
Is it's invaluable. It's in our DNA, and then it's lost. And they have strived so hard to maintain that, and partly that's what the turban you wear symbolizes as well. That's not just Tony Patty today wearing a turban. It's
yes.
hundreds of years of sacrifice and so much courage and dedication
Absolutely, and
that
it
your
wasn't
forefathers
easy.
have given.
It
Yeah.
wasn't easy, and they say scars never heal, and it's true. Those scars
Mm.
never heal, and
Mhm.
and perhaps they never will. But these are the values, as systems, as imprints that we have in our brains and minds, as you have in yours, Bhavan.
Yeah.
And isn't it wonderful that we have mentors like you, running institutions and organizations such as the Yog Foundation, because you are mentors for tomorrow, which and today and tomorrow, which is fantastic. And talking of the York Foundation, what sort of work do you do with that? And tell us a little bit about that, because why start the York Foundation in the first place, and what's it all about?
So Yog Foundation is, I mean, I try to simplify something that's, I'm not going to do any justice, and it's not just me, by the way. So Yog Foundation is a platform to bring people together to do some good.
Right.
Now, that good can be in any form. It can be doing food distributions. It can be doing food bank collections. It can be doing COVID-19 support, that a lot was done last year. It can, right to monthly children's
Mm.
hour bhajans, so kids only, children only doing bhajans, or daily jobs during COVID. We haven't stopped it since COVID. Every single day doing a job, mantra job, just to give people peace and some sense of security as well. Through to running Hindi classes, moral value classes, Gujarati classes, yoga, health and well-being seminars. There's a ton of stuff that's going on. And the reason for that is simply to help people do good. So no one should feel that I've got this really good idea that I want to help others with, or I want to do this thing, but I don't have the infrastructure or the people or the support to do it.
Right.
We provide that. And so the Hindi teachers, for example, are all voluntary. They all teach voluntarily. The yoga
Mhm.
teacher, voluntarily. The meditation teacher, voluntary. The Gujarati teacher, voluntary. So that's because they want to do something as seva, and we give the platform for them to do
So
that.
giving something back to society, but in a positive way. And these are the parameters that you're installing to build this heritage and culture that we're talking about through the York Foundation.
Exactly. And it's not a simple kind of wear a kurta and now you're in touch with your culture. It isn't as simple as that. It's all these variety of things. If you're
Mm,
simply helping another, and you sometimes you don't even know who that other is, unconditionally helping the other, serving the other, you're still in touch with those values. If you're sitting there singing a bhajan, you also sing in touch with those values, but they don't have to be both. It doesn't have to be all of those things. It can be any of those things. And so we're providing a kind of a vast array of those options, as many as possible, actually, to in some way, shape, or form, maintaining a connection with those values. And what that
right.
also does, Tony, it creates a community. And that's
Okay.
so important. The peer group is so important that if I'm going back to the Kurta example, if I'm a kid, 15-year-old boy, I'm really self-conscious. I'm wearing, and I've been forced to wear kurta by my parents for
Mm.
Diwali or wherever at this occasion. But I see a bunch of other 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, etc., also wearing a kurta and embracing that tradition. Then actually, I feel okay with it. So the community is really, really important. So that's what we're also doing, bringing that community together. And the reason we did it, Tony, mainly was we noticed in the Bexley, Bromley, Dartford kind of area of London,
Mm.
Kent, a lot more Indian sort of heritage people moving out there. Good scores, nice houses, not too far from the city of London. I commute from there myself. And
So
so
by virtue of association, you're bringing these people into the community and part of your foundation.
exactly. And a lot of them have only come over from India in the last 10 years or so, 15
Sure.
years or something. And they're longing for that sense of community and society that you still have in India. Here it's kind of I'm all right, Jack, and you're in within your sort of four
Mm.
walls at home, and that's it. Whereas as a community, I mean, there's nothing more beautiful than seeing a community, a bunch of strangers come together, friends you've only known for a year or two, come together at the time of need for somebody else. And we've
I think
seen that
for me,
happen time and time again.
that's incredible, and I bow my head to you
Mhm.
because that's such an incredible thing that you have achieved there, Bhavan, by bringing people together. But isn't it also amazing that by bringing these people together, you're creating this fantastic balance of culture and heritage? Here I go again, culture and heritage and culture, bringing that balance into life. Whilst living in England, we're living in Britain, and so you're not only acknowledging and associating yourself with culture and heritage and identity,
Mhm.
but
Yep.
also you're bringing together the current state of affairs of socio-economic living in this country.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's even more important given the lockdown
Sure.
and where people are reassessing what's important to them in life over the past 18 months or even 2 years. That's certainly that question's been raised. What is important to me? And a lot more people are really actually existentially speaking, what are my roots? What are my faith? What's my heritage? What's my culture? And
Mm.
so it's becoming even more prominent as a result. And as you say, bringing that community together to achieve that is a really powerful way of just there's a win-win for everybody actually.
Well, bravo to you and well done to you and your team for doing that at the Yog Foundation. Let's talk about the Hindu faith, if we may briefly, which has a large part to play in your thinking, as you've explained to us in our conversation today, Bhavan, and the work that you do. The importance of faith, not just Hindu faith, for all cultures and religions, castes and creeds, is very important. But Hindu faith, in particular, in our conversation today, does play an important part in your life, doesn't it?
It does massively, and like I said, in my upbringing, but also as I've matured, I'd like to think I've matured. What it's done, faith. First of all, it teaches me there's the divine in everything. There's divinity in everything. There's godliness in everything. Even the most mundane thing, there is godliness in that. And so
Mm,
that's an outlook, I suppose. Um, it also, in a way, teaches there's a role to play. We all have a role to play in life. We all have
yeah.
work to do in life. Call it your dharma or your karma. There is things. So going to work and earning a living is also part of that role to play, that duty, that responsibility to fulfill. It's like a thread that runs through the beads, whatever those beads might be in life, being family, society, community, work, business. Throughout those beads, faith is the string that sort of runs through that for me. and gives me that sense of relevance, that what's the broader, wider picture here, and the sense of purpose throughout all of this. And I think I'm more effective as a result of my faith.
No, well done. But you see, one thing I wanted to just share with you, if I may, Bhavan, the transition of mankind, the journey that we have, and the modern age is marked by a scientific knowledge, giving less room to faith, unfortunately. But it is a common belief that faith and science are mutually exclusive. And in simple words, the two cannot exist at the
Mm,
same time. However, it's not the case for everyone. Both science and faith have a lot of room to fit other things and explain that connection that they have between them. What is your view on that?
I disagree with it. So,
Okay. Yeah,
first time I'm disagreeing with you here, Tony.
no, that's
Um,
fine.
I
Which is
disagree.
absolutely correct, man. Yes, go on.
So what I'm disagreeing with is science and faith being mutually exclusive. Science and religion might be, not faith. Science and spirituality, faith, are not mutually exclusive. Science endeavors to explain what we do not know or understand. It explains how hydrogen molecules combine with oxygen molecules to produce water. I think that's right. Yeah,
Okay.
H2O. Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
it's explaining what we understanding the world around us. That's what science is
Mm,
doing.
yeah.
That's fine. That has its place. And in fact, a lot of the sort of ancient texts and scriptural texts of the Vedic traditions as well does the same thing. It
Yeah.
doesn't say reject science. So science is still in that never-ending journey of discovery. Faith, on the other hand, is saying, okay, I don't really need to know. I mean, I can know, but I don't need to know in order to believe. So it gives me a grounding, a presence now, in this moment, you know. And so I can be a person of faith, and as well as try using science to make that discovery as to how the world works and how how the planets work and how chemistry, biology, physics, whatever else
Yes.
within the spheres of science, how that operates. And so I don't think that they're mutually exclusive. What, however, I would say is religion and modern society sometimes can be
Well said.
mutually
Well
exclusive,
said. Yes. Mm.
and that's because even I keep using this example. Even McDonald's has to change its menu, has to change its branding, it's the way its restaurants are set up, and everything else. So I think it's important that religion, while staying true to its values, also needs to keep up with how society is evolving.
Very well said. And on that note, then, finally, what's your advice for others like yourselves, given this discussion that we've had today, on ensuring that Indian values remain integral to our complementary British values as British Indians? And we touched on this briefly earlier, but Indian values are so very important to and integral to our society, aren't they, Bhavan?
I think so. I think we have a massive amount to offer. COP26, I think, most recently has proven that. Back in the banking crisis that I unfortunately was around for back in 2008, again, the Indian values of, or the opposite of greed, which caused that. So there's many instances where we find actually time and time again those traditional Indian values have a role to play into the future and in modern society as well.
Mm. Yeah.
But in terms of advice, what I would say, it's a journey. I think be open to the fact that yes, we are British if we identify in that way, but also ask yourself, what does it mean to be Indian? Yeah, what does it
Mm.
mean to be Asian, Hindu, Sikh, whatever that faith might be? And within that, get that sense of identity, because it's not just a label; it's also what that means for you as well. And what it means for me may not necessarily be the same for what it means to the next person. So certainly take the time to reflect and really and to pretend, Tony, that you're not Indian when your DNA is and your name is and your skin color is. I think it's a mistake. You're not being true to your own self either.
Indeed, very well said. And whilst we talk about faith here, here's something for you in our parting few words together, Bhavan. That the term faith is derived from the Latin word fides, which means loyalty, trust or fidelity. That's something that we can take away from that today in our conversation. We'll take a short break, and we'll come back to say goodbye to Bhaven in just a moment, right after these words. iEntertainment is brought to you by iGlobal for all the latest film and series reviews, starry interviews and cinema listings covering Bollywood and beyond to reflect a truly pan-Indian entertainment spectrum. Check out the latest at iglobalnews.com. Thank you for joining us. We are talking with Bhaven Pathek, and Bhaven Pathek MBE joins us. Of course, from his incredibly busy career in the city to running the Yog Foundation as well. Hello, Nays. Thank you very much indeed for your comments there. I don't know if Bhaven can see Nays' comments there. Tasem Singh Bimra sent us a thank you earlier on as well. But I'm not able to read what Nays has actually written there. And Bhaven, I may rely on your...
He's left his phone number if you want to give him a call, then Tony as well. Kannada UA Qatar visa ke liye ghar par aavedan kar. I have no idea what that means. Yeah, it's not in Hindi. It's in the Devanagari text, but not actually Hindi language. But
10 out of 10 to you. I'm impressed.
Yeah, but I've been getting a lot of my phone's been going mad, getting a lot of messages saying how much they've enjoyed this conversation as well.
Well, that's fantastic. That's great. And, it's been a pleasure and privilege talking with you, as always, Bhaven. You're a mine of information, and I probably will never get tired of talking with you right here on iGlobal, for which I thank you. And thank you for taking time out for us today. And this is perhaps probably a really good opportunity for us to just give a quick mention to the Yog Foundation. If people want to get in touch with the Yog Foundation and be very much a part of it and what you're doing, how can they do that, by the way?
Oh, well, listen, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts and views here as well. Really, I love what iGlobal is doing and how much it's achieved in a very, very short space of time that it's come about. And it's really filling a gap that very few other media outlets could fulfill. So really appreciate this. I think it's a fantastic endeavor. In terms of Yog Foundation, we've got a website, yog.foundation. That's it. www.yog, being YOG.foundation. We're on Facebook, Yog Foundation as well. And they're two really the main ways of getting in touch with us. And if there's anything you want help with, you want to be part of, looks like we're going to be moving more things online again. We're actually global. During the lockdown, we'll have people from all over the world actually logging into our activities and things. That's great. We want to reach as many people as possible. There shouldn't be people out there who want to reach something and they can't. So yeah, that's the way to get in touch with Yog.
Fantastic. And I wish you all the very best with that. And also to the entire team as well for all the great work that you're doing. And of course, season's greetings to you and to your family and to the team there. I wish you well, Bhaven. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tony.
Appreciate it. That was Bhaven Pathek MBE joining us today. And with that, bringing us to the end of today's show right here with our Living Bridge Conversations. Don't forget, you can also play back any of the past sessions under the video section of iglobalnews.com, or indeed our Facebook and YouTube channels as well. And for more Living Bridge Conversations, stay tuned at iglobalnews.com. Meanwhile, do keep your feedback and comments and questions coming in at this particular address, which is info@iglobalnews.com. I'll give that to you one more time. info@iglobalnews.com. And until next time, from Bhaven Pathek MBE and myself, Tony Patty, I wish you well. Thank you very much indeed, and bye-bye for now.